And then the marketing of the meat, the selling of the meat is also under refrigeration. This is the chew meat must be kept cold until it's sold or cooked. An ideal storage temperature for fresh meat is just above freezing point, which is about -1 to -1 for fresh meat. That can be lower for bacon. What is the freezing point of water? At atmospheric pressure, freezing point of water is 0 degrees C. The freezing point of meat is lower than or higher than 0 degrees C? Lower or higher? Lower. Why lower? Okay, we just give an example. If you have pure water, atmospheric pressure, when you chill, when you cool it down, it will crystallize, it will freeze at 0 degrees C. Nó sẽ, cái tinh hay nó sẽ lạnh đông tại 0 độ C. But if you add salt into water, for example, sodium chloride into the water, and when you lower the temperature to 0 degrees C, there is already freeze, or should we lower further? Means that the freezing point of salt solution is lower or higher than the freezing point of pure water? It's lower. Why is lower? Why? Now, salt is salt dissolved in water? Yes. Means that salt and water love each other or hate each other? Love each other. The salt dissolved in water means that it has affinity with water. Means it keep water, it hold water. Alright? It's hold water, then it's make water more difficult to freeze. More difficult to freeze means the freezing point should be lower. So when you add salt, you add sugar into water, the freezing point is lower down because the solutions become more difficult to freeze. And here, for meat, lean meat, for example, has 76% of water. But not only water, it has also dissolved component inside, okay? Dissolved component like soluble proteins, like minerals, and so on inside. So there are dissolved components of freezing point of meat should be lower than 0 degrees C. And why for bacon, the freezing point is even lower? Why? Bacon is a killed meat product. A killed meat product means you already add quite some amount of like salt, sugar, and so on, depending on your the taste preferences. And then they add salt, for example. So there is more salt in bacon than in fresh meat. So the freezing point of bacon even lower. You go to supermarket and you buy ready to cook hot pot, in a hot pot, ready to cook maybe sea fish like shrimp, squid, and fish, and so on. They also include for you a seasoning package, a small package of sauce, we call it sauce, right? A package like this, a small package. So when you cook, you boil this in water, you also add this sauce. This sauce is actually concentrated sauce. It's quite concentrated because the bag is small, the amount is small. And then they sell this in a freezer, hold it up and you look, all the sea fish are frozen and hard. But this sauce package is still soft, like it's not frozen. The seafoods, the fish, the squid, the shrimps are all frozen in a freezer, but the small bag of the sauce is still liquid. And when you look and you get a bit scared, wow, maybe something wrong with this sauce, why it's not frozen? But nothing wrong. Why it's not frozen? Why this small bag of sauce is not frozen? Even the whole package is stored in a freezer? Because this sauce has a lot of salt, sugar, fish sauce inside. A lot of dissolved components. So the freezing point of this sauce is very low. That when you put in the freezer, it's still above the freezing point. It's not frozen. Okay, right. And now, so this is the expected storage life of various types of meat. Beef, the expected storage life, the shelf life at -1 degree C. For beef, fresh beef, you can store and sell up to 3 weeks. Okay, if you have a strict hygiene condition, you can store up to 5 weeks. And veal, a bit less. Lamb, much more. Pork, less than meat. Rabbit, much less. Chicken, Chicken would have the cell life less or more than beef. What do you think? Smaller. Piece of meat, whole piece of meat, and ground meat. Which one have longer cell life in the fridge, do you think? Ground meat là thịt xay đó. Còn là thịt nguyên miếng bự. Which one have longer shell life in the fridge? Whole piece of meat or ground meat? Which one? Whole piece of meat. Why? Okay. When you have a whole piece of meat, mean the surface area is just the surrounding area. But when you grind the meat into so many small particles, mean that the surface area is a lot increased. Okay. You increase a lot of surface area, mean you have a lot of contact with oxygen. When you grind like this, you have more drip. What is drip? Drip means the liquids inside the meat which is released out. When you dry the meat, drip has nutrients for microorganisms to grow. Oxygen provide for aerobic microorganisms to grow. Chemical reaction like oxidation to occur. So the more you grind, you chop the meat, the shorter the what? Shell life. Okay. Here you see beef had long, pork had less, or lamb has long because lean meat has long and larger. But the rabbit has shorter, and then the edible offal has shorter. The chicken has shorter cell life because smaller piece of meat mean higher surface for contamination, for the exposure to oxygen, and so on. But why bacon had longer shell life? Why? Yes, because it has quite amount of salt. Why salt have the preservation of the food products? Okay, because salt absorb water means salt will reduce the water activity. Because salt will increase the OP of the product. What is OP? Osmotic pressure. We will discuss this in chapter 5. Okay, but the more salt you add, exactly you have higher preservation effect. People add a lot of salt and sugar and so on in the food ingredient to preserve them. Okay, right. Meat should be placed in the refrigerator immediately following receipt. Carcasses, quarter, and large primal should not be cut into smaller portions before it is necessary to do that. Why? Can you explain why? It's not advisable to cut the large carcasses, the quarter, into smaller ones, because the more you cut, the higher the contamination with microorganisms, the higher the exposure to oxygen, the higher the drip for microorganisms to grow. Okay, and of course you need an accurate thermometer to check and control the temperature regularly. Transport of meat should be done in vehicles which are also maintained under refrigerated condition.